So, welcome everyone to Light on Yoga Living the Practice. This is a series from IYUK, and we're exploring the influence of light on yoga by B.K.S. Iyengar. It's been over 60 years since the publication, and this book continues to shape how yoga is practiced and taught around the world. And in this series, we're speaking to teachers to hear their personal stories. Today, I'm joined by Judi Sweeting, who has been practicing yoga for over 50 years and teaching for more than 45. And in this conversation, we're going to explore Judi's memories of first encountering light on yoga, her experiences studying in Pune in the 1980s, and some wonderful personal memories of Mr. Iyengar himself. So thank you so much for being here today, Judi.
You're welcome.
I always like to start our conversations just by talking a little bit about how you got into yoga and specifically Iyengar yoga.
Right. Well, originally I was a British Wheel of Yoga teacher, and then I had the good fortune to be taught by an Iyengar teacher. And I said to her, where do you teach? And she, well, I'm retiring shortly, but I go to a man called Kofi Busia in Oxford. And so I wrote to Kofi. And I said, it was like a eureka moment. It just made so much sense, Iyengar yoga, compared to what I'd been doing. And I wrote to him, but I don't know what the heck I did. He wrote back to me eventually, and he said, "Look, do you want to be my pen friend, or can I help you in any way?" And I got my act together, and I started to go to Kofi in Oxford for many years actually. Yeah.
And when did you first come across light on yoga?
That's the difficult bit, to be honest. When I've been with him, I suppose 2 or 3 years, then I thought I'd perhaps like to do some teacher training with him, and that was when the first I suppose I was really aware of it, because it was essential for us to read the introduction. We were always told you get light on yoga, you must read the introduction. This I did.
What were your thoughts on the introduction?
I probably didn't understand it at all, to be honest. But I did keep reading it, and it was just so different to what I'd been used to. The philosophy in when we were doing the British Wheel of Yoga, it just wasn't the same. So I just plodded on, and I did keep reading it, and then um, I think I really probably at the peak of appreciation now. So it's taken a long time. Yeah.
And so when you were training with Kofi, had you been to Pune or that was once you'd become a teacher?
I think I just about passed my assessment, and then a friend of mine from British Wheel days, a lady called um, Marigold Norman, we decided in our wisdom we'd very much like to go to Pune because I was still friends with her. And I said to Kofi, that I plan to apply to go to Pune. I think his feeling was, well, good luck to you. And I did get accepted to go, as did Marigold. Um, and in those days, when you made your application, you, of course, you wisely started to look at a visa and everything. And we were told not to say what we'd be doing when we went to India, to say we'd be tourists. Because at that time in the class, as we found out later rather than sooner, there was a gentleman who had contacts with the chief of police. And Mr. Iyengar, I think, also was told to curtail the number of Western students that he was having in Pune because the classes were really titchy then. And so we just plodded on, and we got accepted, and we went out there. We'd been there about a week, and then we got called to the chief of police. We had to get in a rickshaw. We were terrified. As we walked into the police station, there was a lot of kerfuffle because there were lots of people who'd obviously been caught doing all sorts of things. We were terrified. And he was absolutely charming. He was lovely. He was really, really nice. He said, you're welcome to stay as long as you like. We said, well, it's awfully nice of you. Thank you. And when we got back to the institute, Guruji rang us and said, "How did it go?" And we said, "Fine, we're allowed to stay." He said, "I told them you were good women."
And that first time, how long did you spend in Pune?
We were there for the month, and then we went and did the Golden Triangle.
Up in Rajasthan.
Yeah, yeah. Every time we went, we tried to go somewhere else, so we saw more because we just wanted to. Yeah.
How regularly after your first time did you go out there?
Well, we went 15 times in all. So I suspect it worked out almost like every 2 or 3 years. Um, but I went to Panchgani as well, which was a separate course. But yes, I did looked it up. I looked it up in my book to see how many times we went because I
So,
got all the notes and everything as well from when we went. Mm.
and so the early days, you said the classes were really small. How many people?
Well, difficult to remember, but I would say that first class, Kelly, I think there probably was about 20 of us. And that was when the first day I went in, come here, and stood me on the line. There's a line that started directly in the middle of the dais where Sir was going to stand up. They stood me there, and I thought, oh, please, no. I want to go to the back. I want to be invisible. And I stood there, and he waggled his eyebrows at me. I could hardly breathe, and he was waggling his eyebrows at me as if to say, come on, woman, shape up. Um, but it was wonderful. I mean, I loved it.
And
Yeah.
and would you have a lot of adjustments because you were at the front?
Actually, no, no, didn't so much. I certainly had a few in the future, but no, I didn't. I think Guruji was a very good judge of what he got in front of him. Yeah, yeah. He knew I was a beginner.
And how did you notice Mr. Iyengar's teaching changing from those early days when there were smaller classes?
Not a great deal, really. I mean, the thing I used to dread was he'd say, see, look at this. What's happening? And I'd be thinking, I'm God, please don't ask me. And he'd look you in the eye and you think, well, I'll pretend you haven't seen. And I thought, will I ever know what he's talking about? Because I didn't. And that went on for years and years and years. You'll be relieved to know. Eventually, yes, I got it. And I thought, now this is it. Now I'm motoring. I'll be all right.
And would that have been him doing a demo in the room or using a student or both?
It could be either of them. Yes, it was wonderful to see him demonstrate because he was such a showman and his work was, oh gosh, really wonderful. But yes, he would pick on various people who needed help, and I can remember being photographed when Geetaji was adjusting me and everything, which was really good. Yeah, it was excellent.
And then moving on back to light on yoga, how did you use it within your practice?
I think to start with, that introduction was essential to keep reading it and reading it and reading it. And then I've got a very good friend in Jane Austen, and what she was doing, and that was her that made me sort of realize in the back is there is this bit where you can follow a practice. So it's right from the preliminary course all the way through, as far as light on yoga lasts, of course. Um, and telling you what to practice, from the first week of practice to your last week of practice. And she followed that. And she'd say to me now and again, I'm on week 19 or something like that. And I'd say, oh, my goody, bully for you. And that was what we used it for because it was good at helping our practice planning more than our class planning, I think. And then later on, of course, the preliminary course came out and the intermediate one did the spiral brown round ones, if you remember, with the blue and white cover and the sort of orange and white color.
Yeah,
So
no, I remember using those, especially for my teacher training.
yeah,
The
yeah.
blue one, the blue preliminary was really good. So you and Jane Austen would encourage each other to do the sequencing at the back.
Well, I think so. Yeah. I mean, she'd been doing it longer than I had. I tended to practice whenever I'd been. I'd got my notes from the previous time. And the good sign was when I'd look at the notes and think, if did I write that down for? Because at the time I needed to write it to remember it. And then as time went on, that was the only thing that told me I might be doing a little bit better, was this view of my own writing. Well, what on earth did you put that down for? It's so obvious. Have you lost the plot? And then gradually, of course, what you put down becomes slightly more complex, I'd say, the further on you go. Yeah.
I found it interesting when I was in Pune observing classes.
Mm.
It wouldn't sit in my body and memory. It's almost like when you've practiced it, it's in the cells of your body and you remember it
Yes.
much better than when you've
Yes.
sat and observed and just written, but you've not actually taken part.
I think that good opportunity is what we found sometimes when Jane and I would be in certain classes together because we often went with her, and we also went with Penny Chaplin. So, we were flatmates together, and we would go and watch Prashant's classes. We would be able to make notes there. And then the boys, like Tig and another guy that came with us, John, um, they would take notes of the women's classes. So that way we did benefit a great deal from this collaboration, if you like. And we'd
Yeah.
experienced it. And often what we used to stay at the Kitan and we'd do our practice, and then we'd practice the notes, and the boys would say to us, "This is what he or she said." So yeah, we that was good too. Yeah,
Where is the Khitan?
the Keytown is on Ferguson College Road.
Okay, yeah, I remember the road, but maybe that place doesn't exist
You
anymore.
could get killed trying to cross that road.
When I was
Yeah,
in Pune, I would just you would wait for someone who was local, and you
yeah,
would just cross the road at the same speed as them and hope for the best. It's
yes,
so busy.
yes. Damn good training was that. Yeah, yeah, I remember that too. Yeah.
Can I ask you, with your light on yoga practices through the back of the book,
Yeah.
I ask if you remember how far you got?
God. Not
Because
really,
You
no.
said
I
that
think
Jane got to
I
week
think my
19.
my peak pose, my favorite pose,
Yeah.
I so wanted to do was Natarajasana. Okay, so standing on one leg and bending the one behind, picking up the other one that's behind you, and you take your arm up and catch your foot. Ha ha. And
Did you
I
get
did
there?
achieve it with a lot of help from a friend.
Yeah.
But and we that was I'll tell you why I like that one particularly because often when we were there, we would go and help down in the library because we were quite useful. I could type and Tig will do anything for anyone. And so that one day we went in and they said, "Here, look at these photos. We're trying to find when Guruji was doing Nataraj in front of the Mysore Palace." Wow, we had a lovely time because we were seeing all their personal photos. And they were beautiful, seeing all the family together on picnics and stuff like that. And it took us quite a while. And then somebody came bowling in and said, "It's all right, got it." And was that little episode over, but it was very nice to be able to do that. Yeah.
When were you
Uh,
last there? When was the last time you were in Pune?
2014.
I don't think we mentioned your first time was 1984, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And in those days, would you just do one class and then observe? How would the month work?
In the early days, I only remember doing a class a day, um, apart from Sunday, and then we'd go up and watch the children's class because we like to see them. And that was pretty much always the same, unless you went on a special course. We went on one of Gita's birthday courses, and then Guruji did a course at the domestic science college. I remember going to that one. Um, then you would probably do a bit more, perhaps asana class and pranayama. Yeah. When we went to Panchgani, There were only 6 Westerners went to that, and that Jane and I went to that. And that was probably, he said, this is going to be the most intellectual course I've ever done. At which stage I thought to myself, well, good luck to me then, because I wouldn't call myself in the slightest intellectual, but I enjoyed it very much because it was so different. And there were people from all over the world, from Oz, from America. Um, yeah, and that was when he took us on one day. This was the showman. He took us to Mahabeshwar, Kate's Point, and we walked and we went to see this Kate's Point, and it was this bit sticking, this sort of box sticking out. To our horror, he did head balance, and we were all thinking, my God, not for one moment doubting him, but thinking, crikey, this is awful. And he evidently used to do it when he had the Mumbai students. They'd go up to the Moral Rearmament Centre was where we stayed, and he'd take them to Kate's Point, and he'd do some daredevil posture every time they went there, as far as I know. Yeah,
He was
amazing.
always pushing his fear.
Oh God, yeah, yeah, and ours.
But can you recall how the teaching was so different in that particular intensive?
It was because was it when Sunita recently taught us, didn't she, for a convention online not so long ago, and she was there, and to try and teach anything from that. I've never taught anything from it. It was exceptional, and it's so difficult to explain, really. There's something in him that needed to teach that. And as usual, we turned up, got into the room, and he did what he normally did in those situations, apologized for having too many people in the room. We used to think, good, the more there are in the room, the less he'll notice me. Yeah, there were prerequisites for us to be able to go on this course. And I'm surprised Jane and we were at Maida Vale, and Jawahar, Zubin, and Birshu were there too. They were there. I think they were doing various gigs around the country, and they were telling us about it, and said you should come because we had to have done 20 years. That much I remember. And we applied and we were accepted. And he was on fire. We used to go to the back of the class, Jane and I, because that you sort of get the feel of it all, and how everybody else was coping with it and so on. It wasn't easy. It wasn't an easy course. So every day we had an asana class, and then in later in the day we would have a pranayama one, and we weren't allowed to use the walls because they'd been freshly painted at the Moral Rearmament Centre. It was run by nuns, quite a lot of nuns, I seem to remember. We had wonderful food, absolutely wonderful, like going to a British boarding school, it was lovely. And So we had to do a lot of stuff sort of in the middle of the room. We had to be a wall for people, for elbow balance, arm balance, Shirshasana quite often. So yeah, it was a fantastic course. But no, I've never taught from it. One day I was up on the ropes, swinging around, and he said, "Hey, what are you doing?" I said, "I don't know." And it turned out I was swinging the wrong way, and some poor girl is underneath thinking, "Please don't let that stupid woman fall on me." Um, but it was when he said, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I said, "Oh." He was very good humoured, actually.
And you've referred to Sunita a few times. How does she use light on yoga in her teachings?
This is where the said, where are we? First edition comes in. Um, Photographs. This was given to me by John Ferraby, And he came to me as a beginner, as far as I knew, in 1990. And he looked like a beach boy. You know what I mean? He was surfer dude kind of guy. All the girls were going, he was very popular. Um, I don't know when he gave it to me. I think he was giving it to me about 10 years ago. And I thought, well, this is awfully kind of you. I've got another 4 copies of Light on Yoga. And it's only when you open up the back and you see the photographs, you realize what all the fuss is about. And that's what it is. It's the clarity of the photos is like, the photos up in the Institute, all around the walls. Do you remember? And Sunita frequently, while they're doing their best ever pose, see, look at what he's doing here. Come here. So we'd all, everybody go, holding the camera, etc., to see this posture. But what you see, and I realized going to her more than anybody else, you see the inner work. You know that pose, Purvottanasana. So you'd sit on the floor, hands behind your hips, and you'd lift your backside and you press your toes into the floor. That's the stretch of the east. And it's quite difficult to do. The inner work there is, so much. It's feet, it's abdominals, it's shoulders, it's everything. And that was what she was showing us. She was showing us the inner work. She was teaching to try and lead us to this inner work. I'll put it like this: I've only just got it now. That I get it. I don't think that means I can do it. But I get it, and I understand why there's such a fuss about this book. Beautiful.
What were your initial thoughts of the photos in the early days of your teacher training?
Brilliant. Brilliant. Because I've never seen photos of it before. The books you used to buy. Do you remember the kind of yoga books you'd find, if you were lucky enough to find them years ago? Probably even more so now, I'd say. To find Light on Yoga in a book. I found one in Waterstones in the last 5 years. But thank goodness we've got somebody like John who stocks just about everything there is. No, I mean, it was just nice to see photos in those days.
And then do you still take your copy of Light on Yoga when you teach?
No, no. I took it today to show them what the fuss was about, rightly so, the quality of the photographs in the first edition to my other edition, which is very nice. I like it because I couldn't find a copy for a while with all the photographs in together. That you would get like the concise, I think that's got the photographs on the page, hasn't it? And other ones, the ones we used to get in the beginning. But then, these ones, they're lovely. Let's try and show you. Oh, you see the quality of his skin, and so on. I'm trying to pick something haphazard, but
Like that clarity of being able to see more detail.
yeah, that's what it is, and it's like the photos that are up on the wall. That Purvottanasana that I was on about. He's doing this thing. The feet are perfect, the legs are perfect, of course, and everything else was.
So is there any particular poses from the book that have stayed with you?
I don't know. To be honest, Kelly, it's we're going through all our assessment process. I expect it's the same now. You're obsessed with what you hope to achieve to get you through your assessment. And as our years advance, it gets quite challenging. And I'll tell you what else I look at it for. As people get older and like students have problems and they say, well, I've got I don't know, I've got sciatica, I've got asthma. Is there anything I can do about various ills, some more serious than others? You can put most of it in Light on Yoga.
Do you mean the sequencing at the back?
Yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah.
you've got the course sequences, which you can do
Got the
week by
course
week.
sequences, yeah. And then you've got, yeah, look, showing you Purvottanasana. There's a simple pose, but the work to achieve it, we were taught it by Sunita very recently, actually. And it was, oh, it was amazing. Because I remember when we were doing it, we used to stand on each other's feet. We used to let them get to the stage where they were lifting up and staying there is the problem and keeping the inner feet down, etc. So we used to stand on each other's feet gently, nicely, and that would you eventually find that work for yourself, so you don't need to have anybody standing on you. Yeah.
Well, that's good to know because I would really like someone to stand on my feet doing it. So good to know if I keep practicing, one day my own feet will do the work.
And you
A sandbag on.
sandbag, that would be good. Did you say that you found that the quality of the pictures is much higher in the edition where they're in the back of the book?
Yeah, I would say I think it probably has to be, doesn't it, really? I mean, I know nothing about photography at all, and particularly not this kind of photography.
We've had a conversation with John, and so he showed us the first edition, and even a couple of editions later, it's amazing how the quality changes and the photos get smaller, which obviously, if you're working from the photos, it's hard to see the detail. And then for people who haven't listened to the one with John, the photos then start being involved with the descriptions, don't they? So you have
Yes, they
each
do.
page has a photo and description, which would have been, the copies that I would be working with.
Yeah, I mean, we've got between us, we because Tig's done his training as well, etc. This is the one I've got that was given to me, and it was found in a bookshop, a secondhand bookshop in London, and you can see it's pretty damn good, isn't it? And compared to having the pictures in a book where you've got the picture and then a lot of writing, it's a vast improvement, I think. And it helps people to sort of, and that's what it looks like on the outside. It's silver. Yeah. And the man's name was Kushal Singh, and he lived in Bondesbury Road, London, Northwest 6.
That was the previous owner.
Yeah, yeah. I've looked in all of the books to see when they had their original printing and this, that, and the other. And there's some doubt as to when it actually did come into being, isn't there?
So in the UK, it was 1965.
Yeah,
But then internationally, it's 1966, which is why we're celebrating it this year.
yeah. There's the Purvottanasana in there. There it is. It's my most treasured possession next to the old man.
We've been asking people, what do you think younger practitioners can take from the book? So obviously, it's so relevant for us as teachers now as it was 60 years ago.
I don't think there is a better yoga book to be had. Obviously, it's the Bible, isn't it? It's the Bible of Iyengar yoga, and I think for any yoga, any yoga practitioner will benefit from owning it. Sunita will refer to something in any of the books, really, and she'll say, "How many of you have got said book?" And if you haven't, get yourself off to the library and go and see. There's a library where Guruji was, where he used to go down and do his paperwork and so on, and then to go off with Pandu and get some bits and bobs that you might need. That included books, and I can't remember when Rahasya started to come out, stuff like that.
You can
But
get
she'd
those.
say to people, you can get that in the shop.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but you still
yeah.
can.
And
Oh,
any tips for the younger generation of Iyengar yoga to encourage them how to approach light on yoga?
I think the practical experience of Iyengar yoga is what's gonna get them there in the end. You got to do it. You can't read about it. That's not how life works, is it? You've got to, you've got to experience it. You've got to do it. You've got to see the point in it. Then there's no problem getting the book. Not really.
It sounds very much like you've sort of, if we're making a big fuss about a book because of an anniversary, that's kind of really only a tiny portion of your experience of Iyengar yoga generally. It's been just like some very useful photographs, and
Yeah.
but it's the whole thing because you've been to Pune. It's been much more integrated for you.
Yes, I mean, I mean, I was terrified of him. And, I admit it. And one day in the later years, somebody, I can't even remember whether it was Jean or Lillian or someone said, go down and say hello to Guruji. And I went in the library. I said, why? And they said, well, he's not been at all well. I said, well, I know, but he won't want to see me. He'll want to be quiet. And so they said, go on, go down. So down I go, and I bent down and I touched his feet, and he gave me a tap on the head. And I said to him, Rishi, I hear you've not been so good. And he said, quite frankly, I thought I breathed my last. And I went, oh God, no, no, you, Guruji. And I thought, what am I going to say? I thought, what would you say to your dad, Jude? And so I said to him, I can't believe this. You're so strong. You're really tough. And he stood up and he did the best head asana I've ever seen. And he went, you're right. I am. And yeah, that was it. I thought, God, that was easy. Easier than I thought. It was so sweet. And we were asked on one occasion, Tig and I, to go down. And I thought, oh God, what have we done? As you do, you think, well, you wouldn't ever seek to bother him because he was so busy and so lovely. And he said, I've had a letter. And he got us to read the letter, which I won't go into. And he said, what do you think? Is this person sincere? Do they practice Iyengar yoga? And we sort of said to him, no, we really don't think so, because we both read it and gave it earnest thought. And he said, thought as much. That'll be a no then. So it was somebody wanting to go and see him. And I'd been telling what sounded not entirely true. Yeah.
So finishing up, what does light on yoga mean to you now?
Um, well, it's like having what can I say? I was going to sound silly. A best friend you can rely on. Yeah, that's what it is. It's there, and I think you need it at different times of your life for different reasons. To start off with, you need to know what the heck it is you've got yourself into, don't you? Really, just to be able to accomplish yourself of the introductory stuff, and then as you go on, and not just people who've gone through assessments and this, that, and the other, that changes. What you end up becoming able to do, and your understanding. It's always there, and the photographs, particularly these days, are very important to me. Um, just to see him. But there's other books that have come out in the meantime, about old age, practicing in old age, and this, that, and the other, which I've got. Anything anything that comes out, I like to see it, I must admit. Yeah.
And you've been a wonderful resource to us and shared so much with IYUK through the therapy committee.
Enjoyed it. I mean, I love the research. I love the experience of Lally and I practicing everything, every program we've ever found about anxiety. But the best one was that one from Guruji, and we thought that would cause me a lot of anxiety, would that, if I had to do that? But in fact, it works. That was what it was. So we're very lucky.
That's a lovely way to finish.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for listening, and thank you to Judi for sharing her reflections and her stories of Pune and light on yoga. If this conversation resonated with you, we would love you to share it or pass it on to someone who might enjoy it. There are more conversations in this series, so do join me again for the next episode. And you can find more from Iyengar Yoga UK on our website and social channels. Bye.